Hey, Rambo World Entertainment, and one of the questions I've been having since we saw the first trailer and even getting the first information about Starfleet Academy was the Doctor. How and why is he here, and how is he older? Especially seeing as he's a hologram. And that is one of the key issues, is the fact that he is a hologram. And this, of course, is 1,000 years set after everything in the original series. 900 years or 900 plus years after Voyager and TNG and stuff. So why is the Doctor here? Because who is the Doctor? Well, the Doctor, of course, was the USS Voyager's emergency medical hologram, or of course EMH for short, and chief medical officer during the ship's 7-year journey through the Delta Quadrant. The EMH Mark I, and that's important, of which the Doctor's life began as an iteration, was a computer program with a holographic interface in the form of a human male Doctor. Although his program was originally designed to function in emergency situations only, Voyager's sudden relocation to the Delta Quadrant, combined with the lack of an organic physician, because he died, necessitated that the Doctor's program be run on a full-time basis, effectively becoming Voyager's chief medical officer. Over the years, the Doctor expanded his program a great deal. He acquired many interests and hobbies, developed close personal friendships with many crew members, and even fell in love. He developed into a brilliant yet compassionate individual, that's also important, who proved his worth and loyalty to all crew members throughout the years, earning the respect of him as an individual with the same civil and social rights as everyone else on board. So that's who the Doctor was. And that is very important to note here. Was. And the first part that I said was important was the fact that he was the Mark I. So he was the first iteration of a holographic Doctor, of an EMH. And we know that his program ended up being obsolete because they pushed for newer Doctors. Yeah, there was the Andy Dick version on the Prometheus, but don't forget, Julian Bashir was even selected to be not just a new holographic Doctor, but the new LMH, which stood for Long-Term Medical Hologram, and it was Dr. Louis Zimmerman who was going to base that model off. Which, of course, Louis Zimmerman is the guy whose image is what the Doctor's image was based off. He made himself basically the prototype image, whereas Bashir was going to be the next one. But you see the difference there already. There was the EMH, which is the emergency medical hologram, and the LMH, which was the long-term medical hologram. And the key details about the long-term project was purpose. The long-term hologram was designed for long-term use in situations where a human Doctor is not available, specifically for weeks or months at a time. So you're seeing that they were moving very much away from the EMH, that they wanted a more almost permanent solution for if they necessitated the use of that. Of course, in Starfleet Academy, we have all the Doctors on board this ship, the Athena, are holographic Doctors. Still doesn't answer the one big question. How and why is the Doctor from Voyager in this show and on board this starship? Because at this stage, even though his program did grow to where he ended up having hobbies and stuff like that, the only freedom he basically got was the holo emitter. So without that, he was still essentially your medical hologram. That was it. He's obsolete. He was obsolete in the 24th century. How and why would he not be obsolete further into the future, especially 900 years into the future? And that is a massive problem that they've made for themselves. And Robert Picardo even talking about this character, you just kind of hear where it's like, okay, so it's saying one of the returning characters on Star Trek Starfleet Academy will be the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager, with Robert Picardo reprising the role And now he is talking about the show and his character and how it will all ties together into the themes of Star Trek, which we're all yet to see. So Picardo took some time away from shooting Starfleet Academy in Toronto to appear on local television to talk about his career in Trek, and the subject of the new show came up. Picardo gave a brief breakdown of how the Doctor, who first came online on the USS Voyager in the 24th century, finds himself at the new Starfleet Academy in the 32nd century. So this is what he started off by saying. They've taken me out of holographic mothballs. The character is an artificial intelligence. He's now several hundred years old, but it is set in the more distant future than Star Trek Discovery propelled itself into. So, in that future that my character is now several hundred years old, maybe 900 years old. Remarkably, I don't look that much older, but I'm having a ball working on it, revisiting the character. So, first of all, he looks a hell of a lot older than he did. So, yeah, which also brought up the question of, how can Robert Picardo be back as the Doctor from Voyager when he's older? And their reasoning for it was stupid, which was he gave himself about 500 years ago a program to age to make humans feel more comfortable around him. Because, you know, humans in the future are so retarded they don't understand that holographic characters won't age and die and stuff like that. So he also noted how that new setting fits in with the themes of the show, where he said, if you follow Discovery, which nobody did, this terrible thing called the Burn basically destroyed Starfleet Academy. Everything was destroyed in the future, so now it's come back. So it's really about rebirth, redemption, all of the great themes of after a tragedy of rebuilding. So he's talking about, oh yeah, it's great that all these people can do this and do that and all the rest, even though the Burn was nonsensical. Like the idea that an alien was born next to dilithium, bonded with it, and when he basically cried for his mammy, blew up all the dilithium in the galaxy or universe, destroyed every ship, including ones that never used dilithium, and destroyed Klingon empires and all this type of crap. However, the Doctor that is in this show is very much arrogant. He's self-serving. He says flat out, I am nobody's mentor, all this type of stuff, even though he was 7 of 9's mentor. He's also a teacher on this ship, so that would mean he is a mentor. But it's the fact that you see where he said he became and developed into a brilliant yet compassionate individual. Yet that's not what we saw, especially in episode 4 of Starfleet Academy. In fact, he was telling somebody, you're basically not allowed to speak. I've earned the right to say what I want when I want because of how old I am. You, one day, may earn that right. So he's saying your freedom of speech is basically gone. Don't even get started on the butchering of the quote from the Drumhead, because yeah, that's ridiculous. Dave Cullen did another video on that where he really just broke it all down, and yeah, it's ridiculous how that got past like 21 producers, however many writers there is, you name it, all directors, the cat, you name it, that they ended up butchering that quote and made it actually nonsensical. The idea though that this program, who again was obsolete in the 24th century, is somehow not just a running program in the 32nd century, but a teacher. Now the teaching part makes sense because of how old it is and stuff, but how did the program not just degrade? It should have just fallen apart. You know, we've even seen through Picard season 3 that the likes of Galaxy class starships and stuff are technically referred to as analog. That they're that old, they are analog ships. Voyager would have been one of those types of ships. Therefore, the EMH program would be analog. So how exactly does that program end up in the future, 900 plus years in the future, is still operating fully with no issues, to the point that he made himself older. All of this stuff in a time that would be so advanced that it would make no sense to use a primitive program like the Mark 1 EMH, which is what he is. And then, of course, we also saw in, I believe it was episode 2, where Caleb was able to basically destroy a hologram by asking it 3 questions all together, and it broke the holographic program. If he could do that with a program that was made, developed, and running in the 32nd century, how easy would it be to destroy the Doctor's program? He makes no sense to be here. It doesn't make sense for the program to be fully operational and running, and more specifically why he would be serving on a ship like the Athena. There's no information as to how he's on this ship, why he's on this ship, when was he brought back online to be on that ship. There's none of that. There's no indication of he's been running consistently for the 900 years. Even though he says 500 years I reprogrammed myself, but okay, but were you on and off? And even back then, why were you still a running program? You know, as much as he became pretty much sentient and stuff like that, the issue is he's still an old program that would have degraded and fallen apart through all the systems that wouldn't, you know, be able to support his program. And that's one of the big issues that they've completely ignored. They just went, hey, he's something that doesn't particularly age, we can use him in our show. That's the only reason he's in the show. And unfortunately, Robert Picardo, has gone off the deep end to try and defend this show that he's in by alienating everybody who supported him and enjoyed him as the Doctor by attacking the very people who supported him all along, the fans, because the fans have outright rejected this garbage pile of a show. So, what do you guys think about basically a 900 and something year old holographic program that was only intended for medical emergencies to be still fully operational, aging, and not seemingly obsolete in the 32nd century? Do you think it is a massive problem to have that program there? Let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. And of course, Robert Picardo himself, what you think about his opinions and views on the fans and stuff for not accepting this show. Let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, and hit the hype button and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.